Things that went away. Hi, how are you? Blockbuster Video, Borders Books, Clear Pepsi, the 90s. Sometimes it feels like things are just gonna last forever, and it's always surprising when they don't. Sometimes they're replaced by new things, and sometimes things just disappear. And it's like, you're kidding me, that's really gone and it's never gonna happen again? I am fascinated by change. And as we get older, that's the thing that I notice the most. What changes and what doesn't, and why? I mean, so we had VHS tapes for movies, and then they were replaced with DVDs. So the VHS cassettes went away, and then the DVDs went away. Not for me, of course, because I am a nerd and I collect DVDs. But now they're on streaming, right? So music was on records, and then they got replaced by cassettes, and then cassettes were replaced by music CDs, and then you had the iPod things, and now the music's on streaming on our phones. So, did the records go away? If you want to collect them, sure, but as far as popularity goes, yeah, stuff just goes away. And I'm always fascinated why. I mean, Tower Records went away, but Starbucks coffee is still around. Why? I don't know. Maybe it's luck or necessity or, popularity or all kinds of reasons. But what really interests me is the emotions that I feel when something goes away. It's like disbelief. Are you kidding me? People aren't playing records anymore? And it's kind of like you had a relationship with, this technology, or you had a relationship with a coffee shop that doesn't exist anymore. You had a relationship with a business. I'll give you an example. So Borders Books in San Francisco, in the Union Square area, there was a Borders Books. It was a 4-story building. And 3 of the stories were books, and then the top floor was music. There was a bunch of CDs. You could go to the listening stations, put on the headphones, and I would go to Borders Books at least 3 times a week, because when I was going to photography school in 2003 to 2006, when you walk from one building, because the campus is spread all over the city, I would go to photography school for, develop in the darkroom, and then I'd walk all the way to the computer center, and I'd pass by Borders Books while I was walking, and I would go to and from the buildings, and I was constantly in and out of Borders Books. So I felt like I had a relationship. I would browse to the books, I'd look at the magazines, I'd listen to the CDs, and then all of a sudden, one day, Borders Books was no longer there. And I couldn't believe it. It's like, you're kidding me. It's just gone. And, it's a little heartbreaking. And it's also weird. What happened to it? It became a shoe store. And I went in there after it became a shoe store, and I walked in, and there were no more books. It was all shoes. And it was really weird. And I would go up to one of the salespeople, and I'd say, "Do you remember when this was a bookstore?" And the guy was like, "No." And that's the other thing fascinating about change, is that, what was really deeply personal to you, someone else has no idea about. So the next generation coming up, you may not even know what a cassette is. I spent so much time listening to cassettes, listening to side A, and then taking it out, putting it inside thing, and when the rewind thing wasn't working, you twirl it around and to rewind it manually. This is music, and the generation that's, growing up now, they have no idea what that is. There was a phone number that we could call in the 1980s called Time, where you'd call to find out the time. So you could set the rest of your clocks in the house to that time. And, it was some, world time clock. And, I don't know if that still exists. Is there still a time phone number? I don't know, but you could probably just look it up online. It's just fascinating. And, All right, so I've told my Borders book story. What else do I got? I never memorize these things. So, yeah, if I had a song that I really liked in 1985, let's say Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Now you could listen to that song and say, yeah, man, that's a pretty good song. But you don't have the personal history that I did with that song, going to the high school dances and just dancing. You know, that song is part of my life, my history, where you listen to it and, you know, it's just a cool song. Where you've got songs that you really like, and if I listen to it, I go, yeah, it's a pretty good song. But you've got your own personal life, you know, invested in that song. And, you know, that's the great thing about songs, is they really don't go away. But the artists go away. I mean, Tom Petty's not here anymore. Prince is not here anymore. And, you know, whenever those big celebrities go away, it's like, you've got to be kidding me. They're gone? So anyway, what I wanted to do today is I wanted to talk to you and tell you about and show you some pictures of some things that went away, because this is a really big topic and I really can't totally grasp my mind around it. It's such a big topic and I would really love to delve into it deeper at some later time. But for now, I'd like to show you some pictures that I took of some stuff in San Francisco that was there and then it went away. And I, like I explained, you know, it's going to mean a lot to me where it may mean nothing to you. And I totally understand, but I hope you enjoy it anyway. And before I do, you know, there's the question of, Nathan, why do you have all these pictures of, you know, businesses in San Francisco and places and things? Why did you take pictures of all this stuff? And I will tell you why. It's because of digital photography and because I went to photography school. So I, you know, grew up having film in the camera. And the film in the camera was like 24 rolls or 36 rolls, and then you had to take that one out and put a new one in, and each roll of film cost a certain amount of money, and you know, you had to carry all this film around with you. But with digital cameras, you know, I got my first digital camera in 2003, this point and shoot camera, and I was like, you mean I can take as many pictures as I want for free? And it's all just stored in this camera on some memory card? And I never have to buy film again? I was like, it's like I crossed into a new realm. It was fantastic. And so I would go around, anything that interested me, I would take a picture of. You know, because I learned in photography school, you know, if you just get an instinct, if it feels like you want to take a picture, take a picture. So I would take a picture of everything. If something looked interesting around the city as I walked, I'd take a picture. And also I love San Francisco and I wanted to photograph San Francisco. And so if I saw something really cool, I'd photograph it so I could log it for later and like, okay, I'm going to go back to this location later and take more pictures, probably at night. And so I just walked around the city. Or I moved to a new neighborhood and I really wanted to know the neighborhood. So I would go around and I would take a picture. I'm also obsessive compulsive, so I do things a little, I go to extremes. And so I would go around and I'd photograph, like when I moved to the Marina, or Cow Hollow, which is next to the Marina, I'd go and I'd photograph all the businesses on that street. So I would know all the businesses on that street. I would just have to know. And that way I had a log of it. And I do. 2006, I have a picture of everything, every business that was on Chestnut Street and Fillmore Street and Union Street in the Marina in San Francisco. I have pictures all around the city and of stuff that was there. And what I didn't realize at the time is that what I was actually doing accidentally was taking a picture of history. I was taking a picture of things, of how they were at that time that would eventually change. Because now when I go back at other pictures I took, or I go back and visit the place that's no longer there, I've got a picture of what it looked like when it was there. And so I would like to show you some pictures of, you know, some befores and afters of, you know, stuff that kind of doesn't exist anymore. And so let's start off with Blockbuster. So there's a Blockbuster video on Lombard Street in San Francisco, and I would go to this Blockbuster all the time. I would rent DVDs, and it's not there anymore. You know, Blockbuster closed because of, you know, streaming or Netflix. And speaking of Netflix, as I, you know, jump topics, Netflix stopped mail. Netflix DVD by mail is no more. What they think, they stopped in 2004 last year. Okay. But, you know, the people who were subscribing to DVD by mail got to keep At least I the internet says we got to keep, so I hope that's true. So I got to keep the last DVDs that I got in the mail. And my last DVDs that I have here, this is history, man. This is history. So the last DVDs I have is Wonder Woman, 1984, and Black Widow. And I have it someplace, I don't know where it is. I also have the DVD, which is appropriate, This Is the End. So those are the three movies. Those are the last three movies I got from Netflix DVD by mail. And that hit me so hard. I don't know why Netflix ending DVD by mail is just like, you've got to be kidding me. The end of an era. All of these feel like the end of an era. Anyway, the Blockbuster story. So there was a Blockbuster in my town when I was growing up. In the 1980s, about 1989, there was a slogan for Blockbuster on TV and their advertisements. So they say, Blockbuster, what a difference. And so on a dare, because there was nothing else to do in my town on a Friday night, on a dare from my friends, I went to a Blockbuster video store. I walked in, I looked around and I said, wow, what a difference. And then I just walked out. I was a really adventurous soul back in the day, and you know, that was something crazy to do in my hometown growing up. So anyway, so Blockbuster went away. So these are some things in San Francisco that were there, and I photographed them, and now they're no longer there. And I'd like to share those with you. So in the Union Square area, I mentioned Borders Books, and then on the other side, there was Levi's, had a store, and that store is no longer there because now it's an Apple store. So also in the Union Square area, we had FAO Schwarz toys, where I would buy Star Wars toys, but that's no longer there. There was Virgin Records and Books, and man, I loved going there too, because the bottom floor was CDs and music, and you could go to these listening stations. They had like 8 CDs per listening station. You could type, it was always hard to type on those things, and select what CD you wanted to listen to, Britney Spears or whatever. And then, you know, after you were done with that, you could take the escalators and go up to, I think there was more music, and then the top there was all books and magazines. And so it was like Borders, but Virgin. And man, Virgin, it was great. It was great. It was great. It was meaningful. And now it's no longer there. I still can't believe it's not there anymore. And right next to Virgin Music was Planet Hollywood. And Planet Hollywood's there, and it's got Keanu Reeves's handprints and Demi Moore's. And like I was saying with Tower Records was on Columbus. It was a big store, and right across the street they had their classical music annex. And Tower Records was there, and then now it's gone, and now it's a Walgreens. So Tower Records left, and then Warehouse Music, I think, is gone, and Hollywood Video, and Circuit City, and Good Guys, and I don't know if Radio Shack is still around. Maybe you can let me know. What else left? Oh, yes, the Coronet Theater on Geary Street. The Coronet Theater, where I saw Star Wars remastered, or the new edition, play in 1997 when I first moved to San Francisco. We would go to the Coronet Theater and watch Star Wars. And now the Coronet Theater is no longer there. They took it down. And I don't know what's there now. It's probably apartment buildings or something. And speaking of movie theaters, on Union Street in the Cow Hollow area, which is right next to the Marina, it's called Cow Hollow because back in the day, there was a pasture with cows in San Francisco. And I think that's where the city got most of their milk, was from those cows. And now that's gone. There was a whole field full of cows in San Francisco, and now it's a street and a bunch of shops and stuff and houses and apartments, and so that's gone. It changed, and I'm sure the people who saw the field go away and saw these buildings being built was like, I can't believe the field's gone. I can't believe the cows are gone. But let's name it Cow Hollow in memory of that field of cows. So anyway, yeah, so on Union Street there was a movie theater called the Metro, and now the Metro's gone, and now it's, I think it's Equinox Gym. And then also another movie theater on Chestnut Street, just a few blocks away, there was, it was called Cinema 21, I believe. And then I was taking some pictures of when they were remodeling that and reconstructing that. And they moved the was it Walgreens? Yeah, they moved the Walgreens that was right next door underneath the theater and put in an Apple store. And then they redid the Cinema 21. So I don't think the Cinema 21 went away. They just made it, they remodeled it. And so it looks really nice now. And also on Chestnut Street, there was a magic shop in 2006. And was there for a long time. And I love that magic shop because you would walk in and they had rubber chickens and then whoopee cushions and all kind of magic stuff and costumes. And every time I walked in there, they were playing sound effects of people farting. They had fart sound effects. Probably played from a CD on the loudspeakers. I love that magic shop. And then that went away. I don't know what it is now, but it's just not there anymore. And then right next to there was a business called Fault Line. But before that, it was Cosmo's Corner Grill, and it was Circa, and it was, now it's called the Dorian. And if you keep going up Fillmore Street, you know, there was a place that was a Taco Bell KFC, and then that got torn down, and now it is a Pokey Time restaurant. And then right up the street from Pokey Time was a great bar called Matrix Fillmore. And it was a lounge. I think it was called an Ultra Lounge. And it was a great place to hang out. It was like the coolest place to hang out in the Marina. And then that got changed over, and I think the same people still own it, and now it's called the White Rabbit. And originally, the Matrix Fillmore, I think, was owned by members of the Jefferson Airplane Band who did the song White Rabbit, and so that's why they call it the White Rabbit. There was also a DVD store on Fillmore that's no longer there. There was a place called Real Food Company. And each week I would go there and buy my groceries. And it was a great little grocery store. And then that got taken away. And then I believe they turned that into a Shake Shack. And also on Fillmore, there was a great place for sliced pizza called Pizza Orgasmica. And that's no longer there. And then right down the street from that, the fire station did a total remodel, and that doesn't look the same anymore, and it's new and improved. And I would take pictures of these places every time I would go down there. Also because I'm writing a rom-com book series set in the Cow Hollow Marina area. And so every time I would fly back down, because I moved up here to Oregon in 2008, and I kept flying back down every year to go to the Union Street Festival. And every time I went down, I would photograph the neighborhood and how it changed, because I wanted to know how things looked now, because I was writing about those places. And so that's why I also have all these pictures of how, you know, things changed. So also on Union Street, some things that are not there anymore. The Albuquerque became the Brixton. The Pasta Pomodoro became Hollow Cow, you know, play on words, Cow Hollow. Hollow Cow. Beetle Nut became, I think, a place called Flores. And there was a great comic book store that sold, you know, novelty toys, and that's not there anymore. And you know what else doesn't probably exist anymore? Payphones. When's the last time you saw a phone booth in the middle of the city? You know, or a telephone, a public telephone somewhere. You know, maybe at the airport, but you don't really see that around town anymore. They all got taken out. It's the end of an era. So anyway, those are my thoughts on change. And every time one of these places, you know, goes away, I have an emotional reaction. It feels like the end of an era. And maybe all this change happens so we can appreciate it, and we learn to appreciate things because we know it's going to change. And so, I don't know. Maybe that's the lesson to be learned, is to appreciate everything, because it might get replaced by something else. And I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Maybe AI is going to take over. I hope, you know, the whole AI human thing, we find a nice balance and one doesn't take over the other. And I don't know. We'll see how everything works out. Anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts about change. Is there stuff in your hometown that has changed and you wish it still existed? You know, was your heart broken when that fantastic restaurant you used to go to all the time just up and disappeared one day? I would really like to know. And, you know, did you have an emotional connection to these places? Anyway, just random thoughts about change and things that went away. Thank you very much for listening to my ramblings. And I will see you next week for some more silly rambling. Thanks for hanging out with me and have a great day. Maybe I should make some changes with this this video vlog every week. Or should I keep it the way it is? Have a great day.